You're sitting at your kitchen table, laptop open, still in the same hoodie you wore yesterday. Maybe you've got a cup of coffee you made yourself, and you're about to start your workday. No commute, no rushing to catch a train, no digging through your closet for something presentable, and somewhere in the back of your mind, you realize something has shifted. The way you spend money, the things you used to think you needed, a lot of it just doesn't make sense anymore. But here's the thing. Most people haven't actually updated their spending to match their new reality. They're still paying for a life they don't live anymore. And that gap between the life you're actually living and the expenses you're still carrying, that gap is quietly draining thousands of dollars a year from your future. Today I want to walk you through 10 specific things that are probably no longer worth your money, especially if you work from home. And more importantly, I want to show you exactly what that money could be doing instead. Because when you add it all up, we're not talking about pocket change. We're talking about the difference between staying stuck and actually building real financial momentum. I'm James, and I spend a lot of time thinking about how money really works. Not just the math, but the psychology, the habits, the invisible decisions that shape our financial lives. If this video helps you see your spending differently, consider subscribing and hitting that like button. It really does help the channel grow, and it means I can keep making content like this. Alright, let's get into it. Here's the first thing that's probably no longer worth your money if you work from home. A premium gas car. Now I know, cars are emotional purchases. People love their cars. But let me ask you this. How many miles are you actually driving these days? Before the pandemic, the average American was driving around 12 to 15,000 miles a year. But surveys from major auto insurers show that remote workers have cut their driving by 30 to 50%. Some people are barely putting 5,000 miles on their car annually. So think about what that means. That premium SUV that requires premium fuel, that expensive lease payment, that higher insurance rate, all of it was sized for a life where you were commuting every day. If you're now working from home 3, 4, 5 days a week, you're paying for capacity you don't use. Let's run some quick numbers. Say you're spending $600 a month on a car payment, plus another $150 on insurance, plus gas. That's easily $800 a month or more. Now imagine you traded down to a reliable, fuel-efficient used car. You could cut that to $300 or $400. That's $400 a month back in your pocket. Over a year, that's $4,800. Invested at a reasonable historical average, let's say 7% annually, that could grow to over $65,000 in 20 years. All from one decision about a car you barely drive. The second thing that's no longer worth your money is the dedicated business wardrobe. I get it. Looking professional used to matter a lot, and if you're in certain industries, it still does for client meetings or important in-person days. But be honest with yourself. How many dress shirts, blazers, and formal shoes are just sitting in your closet now? According to surveys from fashion industry analysts, remote workers have cut their spending on professional clothing by 40 to 60%. And yet, a lot of people still have that mental category in their budget. They still feel like they should be buying nice work clothes. Here's a reframe. If you're on video calls, nobody sees you from the waist down. A couple of nice tops and maybe a decent backdrop is all you really need. The $300 you used to spend on a new blazer could go straight into your investment account. That's not deprivation, that's strategic. You're not giving something up. You're reallocating resources from something that no longer serves you to something that builds your future. Number 3. The big downtown apartment. This one is huge, and I mean that literally. For years, the conventional wisdom was that you needed to live close to work. Commute time was a major factor in where people chose to live. And because of that, downtown apartments commanded massive premiums. But if you're remote or hybrid, that math completely changes. Data from rental market analysts shows that downtown rents in major cities can be 30 to 50% higher than comparable apartments just 15 or 20 minutes outside the core. We're talking about a difference of $500, $1,000, sometimes $1,500 a month. Now, I'm not saying everyone should move to the suburbs. Quality of life matters. Walkability matters. But if you're paying a premium specifically for proximity to an office you rarely visit, you're essentially paying a tax on a lifestyle you've already left behind. Take that $1,000 difference and invest it. Over 10 years, at historical average returns, you're looking at well over $150,000. That's not an exaggeration. That's just math. The question is whether the view from your expensive downtown window is worth delaying your financial independence by years. The fourth thing that's no longer worth your money is the daily coffee chain habit. Okay, I know this one is controversial. People love to mock the latte factor advice, and honestly, I partly agree. Cutting out coffee isn't going to make you rich. But here's the nuance. When you worked in an office, grabbing a $5 coffee on the way in was part of the rhythm. It was social. It was a break from the commute. It served a purpose beyond just caffeine. But now, you're at home. You have a kitchen. You probably already have a coffee maker. So the question isn't whether you should enjoy coffee. The question is whether you're still spending $15, $20, $25 a week on a habit that no longer fits your life. Let's say you're spending $20 a week on coffee runs. That's over $1,000 a year. Not life-changing on its own, but here's how I think about it. That money isn't just gone. It's opportunity cost. It's money that could be compounding. And more importantly, it's a symptom of something bigger. It's a sign that you haven't fully updated your spending to match your current reality. The coffee itself isn't the problem. The autopilot is the problem. Number 5. Expensive lunches out. This one hits close to home for a lot of people. The average American worker was spending over $3,000 a year on lunches before the shift to remote work. Think about that. $3,000. Gone. Every year. Just on midday meals eaten quickly at your desk or in a break room. When you work from home, you have access to your own fridge. You can meal prep. You can make a sandwich in 3 minutes. And yet, surveys show that a surprising number of remote workers have actually increased their food delivery spending. The convenience of apps like DoorDash and Uber Eats has replaced the convenience of the office cafeteria. So check yourself. Are you actually saving money on food, or have you just shifted the expense from one category to another? If you can cut your food spending by even $150 a month by cooking more at home, that's $1,800 a year. It's not glamorous, but it's real money. And when you're trying to build that first emergency fund or hit that first major savings milestone, every $100 matters. The 6th thing that's no longer worth your money is the premium gym membership near your office. I used to have one of these. $90 a month for a fancy gym that was conveniently located between my apartment and my office. I told myself I'd go before work or during lunch, and sometimes I did. But once I started working from home more, I realized I was paying for location convenience that no longer existed. Here's the reality. You don't need a high-end gym to stay healthy. You can get a solid workout at a budget gym for $20 or $30 a month. Or you can invest a couple $100 in some basic home equipment, dumbbells, a pull-up bar, a yoga mat, and never pay a monthly fee again. The $60 difference each month might not sound like much, but over a decade, invested, that's over $10,000. And honestly, I find I work out more consistently now that I don't have to factor in travel time to a gym. Your mileage may vary, but the principle holds. Pay for what you actually use, not for what you imagine using. Number 7, the latest smartphone every year. This one is subtle, but it adds up. Surveys from consumer research firms show that the average American upgrades their phone every 2 to 3 years. But a growing number of people are on annual upgrade plans, paying a premium for the newest model every single year. Here's the thing. Smartphone improvements have plateaued. The difference between this year's model and last year's model is marginal for most users. You're paying $300, $400, $500 extra for a slightly better camera and a marginally faster processor. When you work from home, you're probably doing most of your work on a laptop anyway. Your phone is for calls, texts, and scrolling. Do you really need the absolute latest version? If you extend your upgrade cycle from every year to every 3 or 4 years, you could save $1,000 or more over that period. That's money that could be going straight into an index fund. And I promise you, in 20 years, you will not remember which phone you had in 2024. But you will notice the extra $50,000 in your investment account. The 8th thing that's no longer worth your money is cable television. I almost didn't include this one because I thought it was obvious, but the data says otherwise. Surveys show that roughly 40% of American households still pay for traditional cable or satellite TV. The average cable bill is over $100 a month. And yet, most of those households also pay for multiple streaming services. So they're double paying for entertainment. If you work from home, you probably have more flexibility in when you watch things. You don't need live TV. You don't need hundreds of channels you never watch. Cut the cable. Keep 1 or 2 streaming services. Rotate them every few months if you want variety. You could easily save $70 to $100 a month. That's nearly $1,000 a year in found money. And look, I'm not saying never spend money on entertainment, but spend it intentionally. Don't pay for subscriptions you inherited from a different life and never reevaluated. Number 9 is one that might sting a little. the status car you use for the commute you no longer have. This is different from the first item. This isn't about fuel efficiency. This is about the psychological trap of the status vehicle. A lot of people bought their car at least partly because of how it would look in the office parking lot or when they pulled up to client meetings. The car was part of their professional image. But if you're working from home most of the time, who's seeing the car? Your neighbors? The grocery store parking lot? I'm not trying to make you feel bad. I'm trying to point out that this is a classic example of paying for status in a context that no longer exists. Behavioral economists call this the visibility bias. We spend more on things that other people see. But when your lifestyle becomes more private, those visible expenses become dead weight. If you're carrying a $700 car payment for a vehicle that mostly sits in your garage, that's a decision worth revisiting. Not because nice things are bad, but because you might be paying for an audience that isn't watching anymore. And the 10th thing that's no longer worth your money is the expensive neighborhood you chose for the commute. This is related to the downtown apartment point, but it's broader. A lot of people, especially those with families, chose their neighborhood based on proximity to work or access to public transit. They paid a premium to be in the right school district that also happened to be close to the office. But if you're remote, that constraint is gone. You have options, and those options could mean dramatically lower housing costs, which is the single biggest line item in most people's budgets. According to data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, housing accounts for about 33% of the average American household spending. That's more than food, transportation, and healthcare combined. So if you can reduce your housing costs by even 10 or 15% by moving somewhere slightly less expensive, you're freeing up hundreds of dollars a month. And here's the key insight. You don't have to move to the middle of nowhere. You just have to be willing to question whether the premium you're paying is still serving your actual life. So let's step back and add this all up. Let's say you make changes in just 5 of these categories. You switch to a cheaper car and save $300 a month. You move to a slightly less expensive apartment and save $500 a month. You cut the premium gym and save $60 a month. You stop buying coffee out every day and save $80 a month. You cancel cable and save $100 a month. That's over $1,000 a month. Over $12,000 a year. Invested at a 7% average return, that's over $500,000 in 30 years. $500,000. From decisions that, honestly, most people wouldn't even notice in their daily life after the first month or two. But here's the thing that matters more than the math. It's the identity shift. When you start making these changes, something happens in your brain. You stop seeing yourself as someone who's barely getting by. You start seeing yourself as someone who's building something. That shift from scarcity to growth is one of the most powerful psychological transitions you can make. Research from behavioral economists shows that people in financial scarcity mode have reduced cognitive bandwidth. They make worse decisions, not because they're less intelligent, but because their mental resources are constantly occupied by financial stress. When you build a cushion, when you hit your first $5,000, your first $10,000, your first $20,000 in savings, that stress starts to lift, and suddenly you can think clearly about bigger decisions. This is where the real leverage is. Once you're not desperate, you negotiate differently. You take smarter risks. You invest in yourself. You might pay for a course that boosts your earning power. You might take a week off to interview for a better job. You might say no to a bad offer because you know you don't have to say yes. That's what I call walk-away money. It's the financial cushion that gives you options. And you don't need $1 million to have it. You just need enough that you're not scared. For most people, that's somewhere between 3 and 6 months of expenses. $20,000 is a reasonable starting target for many households. And the irony is, the way you get there is by cutting the expenses that no longer fit your life anyway. Now I want to talk about the traps, because here's what happens to a lot of people. They make these changes, they start saving money, they feel good, and then they blow it. The most common way people blow it is lifestyle creep. You get a raise, or you save some money, and instead of investing it, you upgrade something. You get a nicer apartment. You buy a better car. You start eating out more because you feel like you've earned it. And suddenly, you're back to zero savings, just at a higher income level. This is incredibly common. Surveys show that nearly 60% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck, including a significant percentage of those earning over $100,000 a year. Income is not the problem. Spending relative to income is the problem. So when you make these changes, when you cut the things that no longer serve you, you have to redirect that money immediately, automate it. Set up a transfer to your savings or investment account that happens the day after you get paid. Don't give yourself the chance to spend it. The second trap is treating savings milestones as spending rewards. You hit $10,000 in savings and you think, great, I've been so good, I deserve a vacation. And you spend $5,000 on a trip. I'm not saying never take a vacation, but be careful about the framing. The milestone is not a permission slip to spend. The milestone is a foundation to build on. The goal isn't to hit 20,000 and then coast. The goal is to hit 20,000 and then keep going, because the next 20,000 will come faster than the first. The third trap is over-leveraging with debt. Some people get a little financial breathing room and think, now I can afford a bigger car payment. Now I can put this furniture on a credit card. They use their improved cash flow to take on more obligations instead of building more cushion. This is how people stay stuck for decades. Every time they get ahead, they take on a new payment that eats up the surplus. Don't do this. Keep your fixed costs as low as possible for as long as possible. That's how you build real flexibility. So what should you do instead? Here's my high-level framework. First, build a realistic emergency fund. 3 to 6 months of essential expenses. This is your foundation. Without it, every unexpected cost is a crisis. With it, unexpected costs are just inconveniences. Second, keep your big fixed costs under control. Housing, transportation, and food are the big three. If you can keep these in check, you have room to save and invest even on a moderate income. Third, automate your saving and investing. Pay yourself first. Don't rely on willpower at the end of the month. Set up the transfers and forget about them. Fourth, focus on increasing your income over time. Cutting expenses is powerful, but there's a floor. You can't cut your way to wealth. Eventually, you need to earn more. Invest in skills. Ask for raises. Look for better opportunities. The combination of controlled spending and growing income is unstoppable. Fifth, avoid chasing hot tips or trying to time the market. Just invest consistently in low-cost, diversified index funds. The boring approach wins over decades. You don't need to be clever, you just need to be consistent. Here's the core idea I want you to take away from this video. The life you're living today is probably different from the life you were living 3 or 4 years ago, but your spending might not have caught up, and that gap is costing you. Not just money, but time. Every dollar you waste on something that no longer fits your life is a dollar that could be compounding for your future. Every month you delay updating your expenses is a month of lost momentum. You have more control than you think. The remote work shift, for all its challenges, has given a lot of people an opportunity to completely restructure their finances. Lower commute costs. More flexibility in where you live. Less pressure to dress a certain way or be seen in certain places. These are real advantages, but only if you actually capture them. If you keep paying for the old life while living the new one, you get the worst of both worlds. So here's my challenge for you. Pick one thing from this list. Just one. The one that feels most relevant to your situation. And actually make the change. Cancel the subscription. Downgrade the car. Move to a cheaper place. Whatever it is, do the math. See how much you could save, and then redirect that money to your future self. Because that's what this is really about. It's about honoring your future self, the version of you who's 10, 20, 30 years down the road. That person is depending on the decisions you make today. And the beautiful thing is, you don't have to be perfect. You don't have to cut everything. You just have to be intentional. You just have to make sure your spending matches your actual life. Not the life you used to have, not the life you're pretending to have, but the life you're actually living right now. If this video helped you think differently about your money, do me a favor and hit that like button. It really does help more people find this content. And if you're not subscribed yet, consider joining. I put out videos every week about building real financial security without the hype or the get-rich-quick nonsense. I'd love to have you here. Now I want to hear from you. Drop a comment below and tell me, what's one expense you've already cut since you started working from home? Or what's one thing on this list you've been meaning to change but haven't gotten around to yet? I read the comments, and I love seeing what's working for people in different situations. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.